Tom Sawyer by Mark is a classic, and I think Tom Sawyer is one of those books which everybody has heard of, but few people have actually read, and so I'm gonna give you guys a rundown of it. The book has 20 chapters, and you can see all of the chapters here, so I'm gonna go chapter by chapter and give you guys a rundown of each. For an introduction though, this is Tom. He is an orphan. He's a very troublesome boy. He loved adventure, and he lived with his aunt. Her name was cousin Mary, and half brother Sid. And he was causing a lot of problems with them. But she still, loved him dearly. First chapter is obviously, as you guys saw, the Great Whitewash, and basically he got into trouble one day, and he was covered in dust and all, and so his aunt made him basically paint the wall. He really hated it, but he did it anyways regardless, because he had a plan. So this dude, his name is Ben, he came to visit Tom, and he said to Tom that I don't think that you will be able to do anything right now because you can't go for a swim because you're painting the white fence. But Tom was like, oh, this is actually fun, and Tom actually didn't want to bribe anyone with marbles and whatever else he had in his pocket. So he got this dude to paint the entire fence for him and took the apple because he made him believe that this was basically a very nice thing. To be honest, I won't call this mischievous. I would call this working smarter, not harder. The next chapter is Tom meets Becky. Basically, in the last chapter, on the last page, he saw a girl, and this is the girl. Her name is Becky. He immediately had a crush on her, and he wanted to do something with her. And so, in this chapter, Tom basically fakes being sick. Right here, he fakes being sick, and his aunt, anyways, guesses it out, pulls out his tooth because it was actually causing him the pain, at least as far as he told her. And she does basically this: he goes to school, he tries to make up an excuse, but he notices the pretty blonde girl that is sitting there. And who is this pretty blonde girl? Yeah, it's her. Tom, against his nature, decides to be honest and obviously gets spanked, but he thinks that the spank is worth enough just because he didn't even scream, and probably he thinks that Becky would like him being fearless. Eventually, Becky decides to learn art from him, and he shows her a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, look at this part. He wrote to her, "I love you," and she blushed, and yeah, looks like she loves him too. Look at this couple though. The next chapter is Heartbreak from Tom. And side note, at this chapter and the few ones after, the chapters kind of merge into each other, but they're still chapters because the author had to make them so. So whenever a chapter has very related content, I would just do entire 2 or 3 chapters in one go. Okay, so in this chapter, what primarily happens is that Tom asks Becky to get engaged to him, and I really think this dude is going a bit too far with him, and he even said that he will seal a promise with a kiss. They don't kiss anyways, but yeah. Tom gave Becky his most prized possession, a doorknob, but she threw it on the ground because she was emotional at that time, and so in the end he gets mad and leaves, and that's the end of Becky. It is very, very sad and looks like a teenager who had just had a breakup, but to be honest, I can't expect this dude. I mean, Tom, you're still a kid, man, you can't date, at least not so soon. And plus, his aunt and pretty much any other parent of teenagers don't want them to date. I don't know a single one who does. And at this part of the story, I really think this dude is definitely having a lot of adventures because he witnesses a doctor getting killed, and the 2 people who killed the doctor are also fighting and burying him in a graveyard, and they both very scared because they know that there will be a hanging if this doctor is dead, and they realize that they are the only 2 witnesses, so they say this stuff. Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer swear that they will never keep the secret and all that stuff. These guys sealed their oath in blood. I don't know what to expect from these anymore. The superstition in the village that if a stray dog barked at your house, they would die. And they were both terrified because the dog ran away and left, but still, he was definitely dead because of what he just saw. Tom stays guilty the entire time. I mean, what else could you expect from him? He's a teenager. The 2 people committing the crime, Injun Joe and Muff, they drunkenly stabbed the doctor, and so yeah, they're dead. They eventually got found out and they were arrested, and Sid told Aunt Polly about what happened, and he was like, blood and something, and so Aunt Polly just thinks that he was having nightmares. But in the end, he gave little gifts to Muff in the prison, and he thought that this was the way this was what Tom did for him, because they got both went fishing together a lot of times. But Tom was just giving these because he was feeling very guilty. Now our poor heartbroken teenager Tom, who has already have too many adventures, he is sick, really sick, and he obviously is also dealing with a breakup at the same time, which I don't even know how this dude is experiencing that level of breakup at this point. He really worried Aunt Polly because he was so sick, and this dude usually stays happy all the time. So yeah, obviously like every other kid, he doesn't like medicine, so he throws it away. So Tom feeds a cat his medicine. Really nice. Tom finally regained his because he thought that cat incident was pretty funny, and yeah, the cat was acting drunk. So during the summer, Tom has had many adventures, which I will not cover because they're just too much and they're too many, they're too interesting, and I would really recommend getting the book for yourself and reading them. But here is in the end, one of the main things that happened was that Tom gave the testification against Indian Joe, who was the criminal who killed him, and because of Tom's testimony, Muff, who was falsely accused of the crime, also got free. This dude still has nightmare of Indian Joe coming back for revenge though. They somehow find out about this treasure that's hidden underground, so they'll go to find it. Indian Joe, who had escaped, also is there, and now this is very amazing. They're dead this time for sure, because literally there is no option for them to escape, and Indian Joe and this scary looking dude is also there. They don't find the money, but now they're really terrified because of whatever testimony they gave. Indian Joe is definitely gonna come back for this idiot and this idiot. I mean, can you at least keep your testimonies anonymous? I don't know a single person who won't do this. Anyways, after this, all Tom can think about is this dude's revenge, and he is terrified. And he also tells Muff, who is also terrified. There is obviously a terrified look on his face, and this is Tom, our dude. So everybody is terrified at this point. Nobody knows what they can do. Okay, so now Tom notices, finds actually Indian Joe somewhere, nearly steps on him, almost kills him. He just falls asleep. Anyways, Becky returns. Tom falls in love with her again. They go on a trip. They get lost in a cave, completely lost. Becky starts crying, and Tom tells her all about how to live a wild life. But guess what? Surprise, surprise! As nature would have it, this dude unfortunately meets this dude again, Indian Joe. No one else except him. I am so confused as to how nature just keeps bringing these two together. Everybody thinks they're dead. They end up escaping. They find a buried treasure, and pretty much they distribute it, and they do all that stuff. The book ends, and Hulk goes off and gets a home. Pretty nice, huh? And that book also has characters, as you can see here. Really nice. Love this part of the book. I think it makes it easier for kids to understand. They've got question and answers if you are attentive. That's pretty much the adventures of Tom Sawyer. Really recommend the book, and I hope you enjoyed this video.